Hi, in this video we're going to solve simultaneous equations where one of the equations is nonlinear. What do I mean by nonlinear? Well, this second equation here, this is a linear equation, and the reason it's called a linear equation is if you were to plot it as a graph, it would be a straight line. Linear just means straight. And you can tell it from the equation because the x and the y here, they don't have any powers. So you have an x term without a power, a y term without any power, and we've also possibly got a constant term here, the 5, which doesn't have any variables. So that's a linear equation. Now, this other equation, it's got an x squared term, so an x with a power, and therefore this is a non-linear equation. Specifically, it's a quadratic equation. Now, if we want to solve these simultaneous equations, it means we need to find a value of x and y which satisfies both equations. Now, these kind of simultaneous equations are a bit easier because y is the subject of both these equations. It's y equals something and y equals something. Now, if y is equal to both of these expressions, then it must be that this expression here is equal to this expression here. So we could just equate the two. We could say that x squared minus 7x plus 25 is equal to the other expression that y is also equal to, so 2y plus 5. So we've just equated those right-hand sides, and now we can solve it. Now, this is a quadratic equation. How do we solve it? We need to get 0 on one side first. So let's subtract these terms. I'm going to subtract this 2x from both sides, and then if you do minus 7x minus 2x, you're going to get minus 9x. And also we want to subtract this plus 5 here because we need 0 on that right-hand side. So if I subtract 5 from both sides, the 25 just becomes 20. And now this is equal to 0. So we've got 0 on one side, and you want to get x squared on the side where it's positive. The next step is we need to factorize that quadratic. So remember, we find two numbers which add to give this number in front of the x, the coefficient of the x as we say, and they times to give this number here. So let's just write that on here. We need two numbers which add to give this and times to give this. What are those numbers? Well, if they multiply to give a positive number, they're both positive or both negative, but they're both got to be negative because they add to give a negative number. So what numbers times give 20? Well, 4 and 5 times give 20. We need to make them both negative. So what about minus 4 and minus 5? They multiply to give 20, but they also add to give minus 9. So therefore, the two numbers are minus 4 and minus 5, and then we write two brackets, and then because this is x squared, we have x as the first thing in each bracket, and then those two numbers we found of minus 4 and minus 5, we put them as the second thing in each bracket, either way round. So this is equal to 0. And now you've got to think, well, I've got a product of two things is equal to 0. If two numbers multiply to give 0, then at least one of them has to be 0. So if the x minus 4 was 0, then x would be equal to 4. Because if you think about it, 4 minus 4 would be 0. Or if x minus 5 was 0, then x would be 5. Remember, the easy way is to just negate whatever number's here. So the minus 5 becomes plus 5, and that's the solution to your equation. So we've now found the possible values of x, but these are simultaneous equations. We're trying to find a value of x and y which satisfies these equations. So for each of these values of x, you need to find out what the corresponding y is. Now, for this first one, if x is 4, what is the y value going to be? Well, you can just substitute it into either equation, but it's probably easier to substitute it into this linear equation here because it's just easier to substitute into 2x plus 5 than it is into a quadratic. So we're going to do 2 times 4, which is 8, plus 5, which is 13. So there we go. Y is 13 when x is 4. And what about when x is 5? Well, if we substitute it into this equation again, the y value is 2 times 5, which is 10, plus 5 is 15. So we get 15 as the other solution. And it's really important that you pair these values together. So this x corresponds to this value of y, and this x corresponds to this value of y. And as long as you write them in the same order, so you weren't to do something stupid like write 4 and 5 here, but then 15 and 13 the other way around, as long as you make sure that the order of these y's is the same as the order of these x's, that makes it clear that this 4 corresponds to this 13 and this 5 corresponds to this 15 here. And we're done.